Welcome. This podcast is an exploration into being human and what's possible when there's less attention on the noise in our heads. Warning. While listening to this broadcast, you may experience moments of deep peace, sighs of relief, personal insights, or long stretches of dead air. Do not be afraid. This is normal. Under the Noise with Wyn Morgan and Kate Roberts.
Welcome. This is Under the Noise with Wyn Morgan and Kate Roberts. And I'm Kate Roberts.
And I'm Wyn Morgan.
So for episode 4 today, Wyn had a thought about what we would talk about. Over to you.
Which is noteworthy in itself that I had the thought of.
Clearly.
Glad you were sitting down when I said that to you. It was a conversation I had with a friend a few days ago, and we hadn't caught up in about 6 months, and I've known him for about 4 years, I think, by now. And I didn't know that 5 months ago he had broken up with his fiancée and went through a breakup that I think 3 to 4 weeks of, he was saying, there was heartbreak and confusion and insomnia. And where he was in that moment was he had moved about 3 weeks ago now to another country in Europe. A country he'd lived in, I think, briefly before, a decade or two ago. And within a few hours of getting off the plane, he'd found a job in his profession, a very technical profession in healthcare, and also had found an apartment in the city that he'd moved to within 3 hours. So he's telling me this and the story of the heartbreak in this 3 or 4 weeks of hell. And here's the bit that I just found wonderful, and it really hit me. He said, you don't have to fight the darkness, just let the light in. And I just loved that as a reminder of something that I felt quite a few times in my own life. But for him to notice that while he was having such a tough time, and literally that he knew, even when he was feeling the heartbreak and the darkness of that, didn't need fighting. He could just feel it and feel all of its horribleness. And that in itself, he noticed, was a source of light, that he could feel that. And it was quickly after that insight, that fresh thought he had, that things started shifting. And he started sleeping better and picking his life up, and is now in a place that he said, I am so grateful for us having broken up. This is a few months later, right?
Yeah.
Because it's definitely the right decision for me. I needed to come back here to where I'm living now. Definitely the right decision for her. And I've learned so much about not being afraid of feeling anything. And I was just listening, right? This is the shortened version of it. This was about 50 minutes of him telling his story to me. I was just so happy for him, but also touched by the depth of what he'd seen. And the grace at which he now has a deeper appreciation of life and being alive. And the reason that I thought it might be good to talk about this is that with so much talk about mental health and stress and anxiety and depression and various disorders, and there's countless of them, and the distress that we can feel as a human being, I wanted to share a little bit about what I've seen, because it's been really helpful for me. Are you okay if I just talk
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
And I've talked about this on as a guest on other podcasts and in a few articles that I've written in the past number of years. But I'd had bouts of depression since I was a child. And I was a very serious child, even though I was kind of like happy-go-lucky on the outside. I wasn't very much on the inside. I was very serious. And an incredible upbringing, a very happy outside in kind of childhood. Great parents, cool brother, even though we'd fight, but that's what boys do in the 3 years apart. Pets, grandparents, friends, just really awesome. Never wanted for anything. And yet I was often miserable, and often quite low. And I remember at a time, I think I was 18 or 19, I had a really deep bout of depression. And again in my mid-late 20s, and then in my, say, between 34 and 33 to 36, a real deep one. And I literally thought, and psychiatrists and psychologists agreed, that there was something wrong with me. I really did. I thought that I had the kindest phrase that was given to me was a mood disorder. There was lots of other words banded around to it, like manic depressive and bipolar 2, cyclothymia, that kind of thing. And I'm not making any, I'm not trivializing any of these. So if anyone here is listening that is familiar with any of these terms, either for themselves or someone close to them, then my heart reaches out to you. But what I'd seen for myself was the only thing that was really wrong with me was I thought there was something wrong with me. It makes no sense to me now that I have a mood disorder. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, because it looks to me as if every human being has lots of moods. Up and down. But I thought when I was low, there was something to do with it. I had to do something about it, and I'd think about it. And I know I mentioned this, I think, in possibly the first episode. But I was so convinced that a low mood was a bad thing, and I'm trying to think my way out of it, and then I couldn't. And then I'd make that up to be something else that was wrong with me. And then I'd effectively think myself to being unwell. Totally innocently. And I had that thought, I think, back in, what was it, 2012? I am not my thinking. And that was the start of me opening up to seeing something fresh, new. And eventually then to know deep in my heart that there was never anything wrong with me other than I thought there was. And I thought that thought was true. And then I saw deeper again that in the nature of thought itself is that it is arbitrary. It has no inherent meaning to it. So here's an example. I could think, oh, spider, there's a spider in the corner of my room, in this office in here. Now, I'm cool with spiders. Oh, spider. Oh, picture of my favorite NFL team on the wall. Oh, me. Then I see you, Kate, on the screen. Then I think about people listening or watching this. And then I might think of something that makes me feel low. Or I might think about, what will I have for dinner? All of those thoughts in themselves are just thoughts that pop into a human being's head. Yet what we often do when it happens so quickly that invisible to us, we just think it's the nature of it, is that we put meaning on things really quickly, especially when it has a certain feeling to it. So let's say I'm very insecure about how I might look today. I might notice myself on the screen. Spider, NFL team, my face. I won't go any further. I will just stick on my face and then I'll think about that. And then it will just kind of, in my own head, I will start really thinking about it. And the feeling of insecurity will rise and my mood will go lower. That thought of my face compared to Spider, Joe Montana's hands going in the air after the catch in January 1982, my face, what's for dinner? Inherently, there's nothing different in those random thoughts, but in my own head, one of them became something I attached something to, and then I put meaning to, which was my face and how I might look. And we all do that with various things. And then we think them into being, and we think them into beliefs, and beliefs look real. That's the only thing that was happening to me. Ever. And that was the cause of my hormones being out of kilter. That was the cause of the thinking I had, the depressed thinking that I had, the low mood thinking that I had, was the cause of my serotonin being low. But also in the whole notion of, what happens in us chemically, the level of, in my mind anyway, the level of the hormones I will have in my brain and in my body would be a lot more constant than my mood. I would go up and down like a yo-yo. Like within an hour, I'd have a bunch of different feelings and a bunch of different moods. I could do that. I still do. Yet that moves quicker than the chemical stuff that goes swimming around in my brain. So we often think, because we notice that there's the confluence almost of the serotonin being low and a mood being low, is that it's the serotonin that's the cause. It's not, it's the effect. Because if it was the cause, it would move at the same time, at the same speed as mood, and it doesn't. It doesn't work like that. Or in the same way that, let me think of something different, another example. Physical pain. I remember a few years ago, it's actually quite a while ago now, so about 6 years ago, I had a problem with a gallstone, but I didn't know what it was. But it was severe pain. And I was doubled over in pain 6 hours at a time. And anyone who's had that would kind of know what it's like. But I'm a guy, I don't know what it's like to give birth. So I'll kind of like, I don't know what it's like compared to labor or compared to any other physical feeling. But I've been told by people who have had kids and gallstones that it's kind of like, you can, there's an equal level of discomfort. Well, to me, it was like the worst pain I'd ever had. But I'd noticed that my experience of even the pain was up and down. I remember doubling over my bed in the early hours trying to get some kind of relief from this pain, because it was like 4 hours in. I've gone, this is grim. And I was laughing at the ridiculous nature of this. So I was able to even find that funny in the moment. And yet I've been sad in what people would call paradise. I've been sad in the Maldives. I've been sad in Hawaii on a yacht. And I've been happy with a gallstone pain attack at 4 a.m. And while that's a lot that I think I've just shared there, what I've noticed is underneath the noise of all my thinking, I'm always okay. Even if at some point, and the one thing that we know is inevitable, that this human form will disappear, my Wyn Morganness will go. That's impersonal. That's just true. That has no meaning about me as a human being. And I notice that the more I see about how we work as humans, I notice more of my okayness, my inherent, innate okayness. Even my okayness while I'm having a low, while I'm in a depressed episode. As my friend mentioned to me, he quit fighting the darkness and he noticed there was light always there. He rephrased that phrase later on in our conversation. I just have to, when I stop fighting the darkness, the light becomes more visible. So that was a real time me just rambling on about what I've noticed for me to be true, not just about Wyn Morgan, but in working with people as well that have, whether it's insecurity, whether it's anxiety, whether it's stress, whether it's insomnia, whether it's an eating disorder, whether it is imposter syndrome, whether it's nerves before a big talk, before a presentation, whether it's not thinking that they measure up in professional or personal life. All of that's the same. It's a thought that looks real to us, that we then innocently, because thought is designed to look real to human beings. And it's funny that the worse we feel, the more real it looks and the more personal it looks. And the longer it looks like it actually feels like it's permanent and inherent, and as opposed to a fleeting thought that we can think of a spider or an NFL quarterback throwing his arms up in the air, or the look of my face. And that's how we all are. That's the noise and what's underneath the noise. And while that's what I see right now, I do want to reiterate that it does not look like that 99.9% of the time. Thought looks real and personal and permanent and true, and it has inherent meaning. It doesn't, but it looks like that. It really looks like that. It's compelling. And if you're feeling that right now in listening and trying to figure out what am I talking about, I understand. I do know. And if you've heard anything in this, then I'm grateful that you have. And if you haven't, that's okay too, because I didn't for a long time. Mm.
You know, it's so normal for us, I think, to give certain things meaning, certain thoughts more meaning than others, and then our minds give us more evidence of the same. And but I've heard people in this conversation talk about how we are always sitting in our mental health and just don't realize that that's what's happening. And it makes me, one thing that kind of showed up for me while you were talking is the idea of when we run a fever. And sometimes when we run a fever, our minds will take that and run amok with stories of illness and everything going wrong, and what if it's this and what if it's that, and here we go again, and all the the stories, when actually a fever is our body's way back to equilibrium. And our minds are similar in that way, that when we let them, and in your friend's words, let the light in, instead of holding so close to the darkness, which is just what we've been doing, is that equilibrium comes back to our minds when we let it. And that's when, when we put that down, that very natural noise. But when we go underneath that noise, no matter how long, it's been our story, things like, what your friend said about, yeah, that wasn't right for me. In the beginning, we can't hear that, because we've got these, but the more he allowed himself to just be in that space, that's what shows up underneath the noise, is our knowing that all is well. And we all have that gift. And it's working for us, just like our bodies are always working for us in that way, to bring us back to that equilibrium. And I think, at least what I'm seeing, is that our mind's equilibrium feels a lot like all is well. It's a feeling. And it may not, I don't think it has words to it. Like our mind loves to put words to things, but when I witnessed people coming back to that space, or I've witnessed myself coming back to that space. It sounds a lot like a sigh, like surrender. Yeah.
And if you've got any questions or comments on what we've been sharing, please get in touch. Our contact details will be in the readout by Kate at the end of this. And it's easy to find us online.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's something in here that you'd love to share with other people as well, then please get in touch. We'd love to have you on and for you to share what you've seen. That will always be a joy for us. Thank you, Kate, and thank you to everyone listening.
And I would love to also add to that if anyone listening to the conversation would love support or just around any of these ideas or topics, definitely reach out. Thanks for joining us. We'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have a topic or question that you'd like us to chat about, email Wyn or Kate at wyn@winning.co.uk and Kate at katerobertscoaching.com. Until then, enjoy what's possible under the noise.